All right. So yesterday we had seen what were various operators and we ended our session at identity operators. So identity operators are essentially is and is not to check whether a particular value is the same or not, or whether a particular uh, variable represents a particular value or an object, and if it is compared with others, if it is the same or not. That is what identity operators can be used for. So we had seen identity operators can be used as is and is not. That is what we have seen. So when we want to write is or is not, then we can check two values being the same or not. And we compared two values in this fashion. So b is equals to 33 is what we initialized and assigned 33 to c and checked if these two values represents the same or the variables represents the same values. And b is c gave us true value. Similarly, if we checked C is not B, right? So if C is, let's say 33 and B is also 33, and we saw that if these two are the same and if it is the same, is not should give us the false value, right? So since C and B are representing the same value, C is not B should give us the false value because they are the same, right? And that is what we discussed yesterday. So next thing that we are going to see in terms of topics is basically conditional statements. So what essentially are conditional statements, right? Conditional statements help us in making decisions. They are the decision-making authority and sorry, not the authority, but I say they are helpful in making decisions, or they are decision-making blocks, right? That is what if and else statements could be used for. When it comes to Python, right, if we have multiple conditions, then we use what is called as an if statement and an elif statement and then an else statement. And we have an expression that evaluates or checks for certain condition, and we use the if keyword, and then followed by the condition, and then we write the statement below it. And we check if the particular statement is to be executed only when a particular condition has been met. So let's try to check a very simple example and then we'll go for other examples. So how do we use the if keyword? So to use the if keyword, we are using it for checking conditions, or immediately after this, we write an expression. Let's say I declare x as 5 or 54. So x is greater than 0, then print the value is positive. Right, that is what I have written. So x is equals to 54, and if x is greater than 0, print the value is positive. So we evaluate this, or I run this cell, and you see that the value is positive. Okay. So this is what we get the output as. X is equals to 54. If x is greater than 0, and it ends using semicolon, and if you hit enter, right, it comes to the next line, and the cursor automatically specifies this indentation from the left margin, and then you can start writing the additional statement. So any conditions that is true for this case, or we want to write code in this particular decision, which is x greater than 0, that have to be written with this indentation. What does this mean is, let's say instead of writing print here, I wrote the print here, right? We kind of write the print statement here, right? And then we start evaluating the value. Let's say we try to do this, and this is out of if condition. So let us what I have written. So if x is greater than 0, it should print this, and we write print statement exactly below if, which is not inside if, and we write this, right? So instead of 54, let's say we give this value as minus 54, right? We change this value from 54 to minus 54, and we execute this. What it says is this is out of if condition, right? So if it was 54, what would happen? It will print both the statements. The value is positive as well, out of if condition. Both of the things have happened. So x is equals to 54. If x is greater than 0, it goes inside this if block. This is called as the block. Whatever we write within if is done here. So I say, let's say x is equals to 54 or x is equals to x plus 1. This can also be written as x plus equals to 1. So x is equals to x plus 1 or x plus equals to 1 mean the same. X plus 1, x plus equals to 1 is nothing but x is equals to x plus 1. Now we write print x. Now what we have done is x is 54. So whatever is to be executed will be executed within this block. So every statement that we are writing or every line that we are writing is having an indentation of this much, about a tab space. This is the tab space that is available, right? Again, we have the tab space. So we evaluate this and then we see that x's value is 54, right? And print out of if condition is also executed at the last. So let's say we do this as minus 54 now. Now, what is happening? Only this particular statement is executed. So the if condition is not being executed. All right, that is what is happening here. So this is how we write the if condition or the if decision making block and we execute it. So if x was 54, we saw that the if block is executed as well as this print block is print statement is executed. If x was minus 54, then this particular piece of code is only executed, right? That is what is happening with the if condition. Let's try to do a simple check. Let's say we have two numbers, x is equals to 10 and y is equals to 20. So if x is greater than y is our condition that we write. So x is greater than y will either be true or false. Even here, if x is greater than 0, it will be either true or false. If it is true, this got executed. So there is no false condition evaluation when we wrote x is greater than 0. There is nothing else for it, right? So for this also, let's try to write something. If x is greater than y, then we'll say x is greater, right? But then we also want something to happen if this condition is not met, right? For such case, we write the else block or the else clause. And then we say in this, so we end this with colon and hit enter. The cursor goes to the next line with the indentation specified as space, and then we'll say y is greater. So if x is greater than y, this should happen, or whatever is there within this block of code happens. And if it is not, then y is greater should be printed, right? So this is what we are writing here. So if x is greater than y, so print x is greater, else print y is greater. So in this case, 10 is greater than 20 is what is checked here in the if condition. Because this is false, whatever is within this if condition doesn't get evaluated and it comes to the else block, right? And in the else block, this gets executed. So print y is greater. This is what happens, and y is greater is evaluated. Okay, and y is greater is printed out. So please try to run this and check this for yourself. Take about 2 minutes and then we'll go on to the next exercise. So any questions on this, guys? All right, if there are no questions, let's do the next case. All right. So let's try to uh, use multiple conditions. Let's say we do something like this. Name is equals to input and then say enter your name. Fine, or enter a name. Let's not even say, we'll say enter a name. Okay, now once we got the name, the type of name would be string here. So what we'll do is we'll first check if name equals to something that is available. So I say name is equals to Jen, then let's say please go straight. Okay, so now we want to check for multiple cases or we want to write multiple conditions. Then I would say something like this. Else if name is equals to Mayank. Okay, then what should be done? Then the instruction that comes is, or the statement that writes is, turn left from here. Okay. Now, else if another condition, name if. So this is elif. That is what, if this condition is not true, what should be done and what should be checked against. We want to check if the name is Mang. If this is not true, what it should be checked against. So we say name is equals to Pramod. All right. So that is what we check here. Then we say turn right from here. Right. If this is also not there, then we want to check for another condition where we say is equals to, then turn backwards. All right. And if none of these is there, then what should be done? We say else, right? None of these conditions have matched. Then we write else and then say name is not available here. Okay. So that is what we will be able to do. So we can do in such a fashion. So if name is Jan, this should be done. Otherwise, if it matches Mayank, we write it as elif name double equals to Mayank. Similarly, elif name equals to Pramod. What should be done? And that is what is written in this block. Otherwise, if the name matches, we know that it should be written in this block. If none of these conditions are met, what should be the condition? That is what we write as else. And we are saying name is not available here. So before we check, let us also try to print what is coming as the name. So name is name. Okay, we'll just try to print it out what we are capturing. Right, so this is how we capture the input and we check for the conditions with respect to the input that has been given. If none of the inputs or if none of the conditions is matching with the input, what should be done? And that is what is written in else. So if you have multiple conditions, right, then we can go for if, elif, and else. If there was only one condition, if and else. If you want to say something should also be done if is not met. If you want to only meet one condition, then we write only if statement. Right? So this is how we can decide whether we should go for if, elif, or else. Right? So let's try to run this. And let's say I print Hari as the name. So it says enter a name Hari and name is Hari and name is not available in Hari. So these two statements are executed. And till here, nothing gets executed because the name was not available and none of the conditions was met with what it was checking for. So it came to the else and then this got executed. Right? So that is what happens. So let's say we want to run it again. So I say enter a name Mahesh. Okay. So Mahesh is also not available. It came to else block again. Let's say we enter some name which is available. I say Mayank. So now it enters this particular piece of code, comes to the first place, checks whether this is available. So this is not the right condition. It checks for the second condition. So name is Mayank. So this particular condition is checked and whatever is there within it is executed. So there is this particular statement here which says turn left from here. So that is what is printed out, right? So this is how we will be able to execute multiple statements using if, elif, and else blocks. So is this clear, guys? Any questions on this? All right, if there are no questions, then let's do a simple exercise. So write a simple piece of code, and that block of code uh, should represent something like this. It should capture the age of the participants. If the age of the participants is greater than 13, only then they can start coding, right? So just try to capture the age of the students as 13 and check for the condition. And if the condition is true, then that particular individual should or is having eligibility for coding. If it is not, then he should not be coding, right? That is the conditions that you have to write. So take about 3 to 5 minutes, and then we'll come back and see how this could be executed. Or let me do one thing. Let me try to run this quickly. All right. So let's say age is equals to input and enter your age. Okay. Or enter age of participant. Right. That is what we write here. And because age is coming as string, because we saw this, whenever you capture input from the command line, it is coming as string. And if you want to check the condition, age is generally a numeric value. We cannot treat it as a string value, right? We cannot treat it as a string value when we want to check the condition. So what we do is, because we want to check the condition for numeric values, we convert this into integer. So I say age, okay? Age is equals to int of age. So now what happens is the string value is represented as integer. And then I check the condition. So if age is greater than or equal to 13, right? Age group of 13 and more, then you can start coding, okay? Else, print, please try basics of code. All right, mean the same though, but then, all right, we can say, please try basics of computer. Rather than coding, we can say basics of computer. All right. So if your age is greater than or equal to 13, you can start coding, else print, try basics of computer. So that is what we are trying to do here. So age has been captured as an int value, and we converted the, it is captured as a string value, and we converted the string into an integer using int function, int of age, and reassigning it to the age variable. And then we started checking for the value if it is greater than or 13. If it is not, then what should be done, right? If it is greater than 13, then there is a path that is available. Absolutely. So this way also can be done. Instead of writing in multiple lines, what is there here in the chat window, that is also something that we can do, right? So if you would like to capture in one single line, probably yes. This is something that we can also do. Oops. This is also something that we can do. So right now I'm breaking down that particular single step into two steps. So input is assigned to age, and then we are converting that age into int value using int of age and reassigning it to the age variable. All right. So if age is greater than or equal to 13, then print out that this could be done, else this could be done, right? So let's try to enter a value. Now we have entered a value as 16. So the value is converted to integer, then this condition is checked, and it is found out that 16 is greater than or equal to 13, which is true. It enters this if block, and this particular statement is executed. Else, this particular statement has to be executed. Let us also check the other condition. Let me try 12 now, and it says the else block is executed. So it comes to this particular block, and whatever is there within that else block is executed. And it says, please try basics of computer. Right? So this is what is happening. Hope this is clear. Any questions on this? All right, if there are no questions, then let's try to do a simple question. So this is the question that we have, and this is basically an hacker rank question, right? So let's try to run this. So we have something like this. We have an integer, perform the following conditional actions, right? So if n is odd, it should print weird. If n is even, right, then and it is in the range of 2 to 5, then it should print not weird. If n is even and in the range of 6 to 20, both are inclusive, then it should print weird. If n is even and if it is greater than 20, it should print not weird. And the additional condition that we have is n lies between 1 to 100. Both are inclusive. Right? So what I would request you now is to, check for this particular question and try for about, let's say, 5 minutes from now, and then we'll review this. All right? All right, so let's try this. All right, so there are certain conditions that have been given here. So let's try to run them and see how this could be done. All right, so the conditions are if n is odd. So when we say n is odd, it is n divided by 2, the remainder should be not 0, right? Or it should not be 0. Right, then it should print weird. If n is even and in the inclusive range of 2 and 5. So this is another condition. So n is even and also it should be the inclusive range of this, then print not weird. And again, if n is even and in the inclusive range of 6 to 10, then print weird. So if it is 2 to 5, inclusive range, print not weird. And if it is 6 to 20, then it should print weird. So these are two different statements, right? And what should happen is also different, right? But the only commonality is that it is even. So we'll see how we can do it in multiple ways again. Again, we have if n is even and greater than 20, then print not weird, right? So this is what should happen with respect to the conditions that have been given here. So let's try this first. So let's capture the number. So let's say n, and then we do int of input, writing in one statement. So let's say I say enter the number or enter a number starting from 1 and ending at 100. So that is what we take. Okay, that is what we have given as. So whatever is entered would be string, and then we are converting that into int. So we have passed the input that is coming here again to int, and then that has been assigned to n. So that is what we are trying to do. Okay. So first thing is what has been given. It is given that n is odd and it should print weird. So what we'll do is we'll say n percentile 2 because that will give us the remainder and is not equals to 0. Then we'll say print weird, right? That is what we are trying to do here. The second condition is n is even. So how do we know n is even? So n percentile 2 equals to 0. And also it says n should be in the range of 2 to 5. So we say and 2 less than or equal to n less than or equal to 5. Right? So we say this one and then this should be, what should it print? It says it should print not weird. Right? So let's write this, not weird. Right? So what we have done is we are checking two conditions in one line. N lies between 2 and 5, both are inclusive. That is what we have written using the AND operator. So LF n percentile 2 equal to 0 and 2 less than or equals to 2 less than or equal to n less than or equal to 5, right? So n lies between 2 and 5. That is what we have written here. All right. So next, LF, what was given? It was given that n is even. So let's write this again. N percentile 2 equals to 0. And what is the AND condition, or why we should apply AND? Because it says it should lie between the range of 6 to 20. And the condition is different. It says print weird, it is not print not weird, but instead it is print weird. So what we do here is we say 6 less than or equals to n less than or equals to 20, and then we write print, right, weird. Right, so that is what we have written here. Okay, we have not weird, weird. That is what we have written. And again, if n is even and greater than 20, so it should print weird, right? Did I read? Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, you're right. You're right. So, yes, thank you for letting me know that. Otherwise, we would have seen where it would have gone wrong. All right. So, I correct this to 6, right? So this is 6 now, right? And then we have another condition which says if n is even and greater than 20. So should we write else? Because there is no other condition. So I write it as else, or we can say elif n is even, n percentile to equals to 0, and n is greater than 20. So we make sure this condition is checked correctly. So I have written this condition, and because it should be even, right? And greater than 20. That is why I'm writing this, right? So I've there is a possibility if it is greater than 20, it could be odd as well. That is why I have included as elif, right? Only if it is even and it is greater than 20, then it should print not weird, right? For rest all cases, anyways, it is odd, right? It is already being checked here. We could either write else and then say print not weird, I'm sorry. But for all the odd cases, it is weird, right? Only for even cases, there is a condition, right? If it is less than 5 and greater than or equal to 2, less than or equal to 5 and greater than or equal to 2, it should be not weird. Greater than or equal to 20 and less than or equal to 6, then it should be weird. And if it is greater than 20, it is not weird. So first thing is odd is anyways checked. So it is always better to start with odd, right? The sequence that has been given in this question, right? It is always better to start with the odd case and then come to the even cases. So there we can capture them as elif, or we can just make this else also. Instead of writing this entire statement, we can also just say else and then capture this. This would really not make much difference. But then by writing this, probably we just have captured that, all the even cases are anyways captured, right? That is the objective of writing this condition. But otherwise, if we do not write this as well, let's say we wrote this as else, odd is anyways captured, right? So this would anyways be even for the other conditions. All right. So I've just written this again. So let's try to run this. Let's say I captured 23. So it is coming as weird, right? It is odd and it is already odd. So it is weird. Let's try to capture something between 2 and 5, inclusive both. So let's say 4. So not weird. So 4 is the only case for which it is not weird, and 6 and 20. So let's capture 14. So it should be weird, right? So we got weird. 14 is weird. Oh, sorry. I think this got as an odd number. So let me try to type in 14. So 14 is again weird, right? If anything greater than 20, and if it is even, should print not weird, right? So let's say I type in 24. So it is coming as not weird, right? So this is how we approach this particular question and see some of the conditions are met. And then if the condition is met, what should be done with respect to those conditions? Can we use range? We have not discussed the range yet. So that could be used as well, but we have not come across range so far. If you use range, right, you might have to use the membership operator for it, correct? Only then you'll be able to check it. N should be checked for this particular range, and then you might have to run it. Anyways, you can try that and then possibly post it to me, and then we'll discuss on that. All right. Okay. All right. So there are multiple approaches. This need not be this approach, but this is one of the approaches. There could be a lot of approaches. And as one of our friend has told, instead of using that inclusive condition check, why not we use some other ways of doing this? That could also be done. So we can use multiple ways of trying to check this. Okay. All right. So that is what we have done so far. Hope everybody is clear with this. Any questions on this? All right. If there are no questions, so let's move ahead. So the next topic that we will try to cover is basically loops. Okay. And in loops, let's try to run this. Let's say we want to run a while loop in Python. And loop is essentially something that iterates over and over again. We want to run certain steps or statements again and again till the condition is true, or until the condition is true, those set of statements have to be written correctly, or they have to be executed again and again. So in such cases, we use loops, right? As it's kind of a loop is essentially an English word. It essentially means going around and round. So that is what we are trying to do in Python as well. And some of them are also there in other programming languages as well. So how do we kind of write a loop? So let's start with a variable. Let's say we have x is equals to 0. And then the first loop that we come across is called as a while loop. Excuse me. So we have what is called as a while loop. And what I put the condition is that the loop should go on until it is less than 7, right? Or the loop should get exhausted when this condition is no more true. So as long as this condition is true, the while loop should be executed. So while x is less than 7, okay, we want to print x. And the next thing is we also want to see this loop terminate. So for that, I am doing x plus equals to 1, which is nothing but x is equals to x plus 1, right? This is what we are trying to do. So x is equals to 0, while x is less than 7, print x plus equals to 1, right? So that is what we could do here. So it prints out the value and then it increments. So there is basically an increment operator, which is nothing but reassigning the next higher value incremented by 1 to x. Okay. So let's try to run this, and we see that 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 are printed out. So what is happening for x is equal to 0? This comes and checks this condition. 0 is less than 7. So this is true. It comes inside the while loop. So just like what we have seen in if condition, in while also, it comes to the while block immediately after this semicolon. Anything that is written within this indentation is taken as while loop. So the first statement is print of x, 0 is printed, and then we are incrementing the value by 1. X plus equals to 1. This is what we are trying to do. So each and every time we are trying to do this, x plus 1, x is equals to x plus 1. So now the value is 1, and it goes back over. 1 is less than 7, print 1. So it is printing 1. X is equals to x plus 1. X value is 2. It goes back again. 2 is less than 7. It is true. Print 2. And then again, x is equals to x plus 1. X value was 2. So now it becomes 3. It comes here. 3 is less than 7. Print 3. Now it comes here. 4. 4 is less than 7. True. Print 4. 4 plus 1 is assigned to x. Now it is 5. It goes back. 5 is less than 7. It is true. It prints out. Again, it goes to this particular while loop again. 6. 6 is less than 7. Print 6. 6 plus 1, 7. 7 is less than 7, which is false. It comes out of the while loop. No more execution. So let's say we want to run this particular loop continuously. What should happen? There are two conditions that could happen. One is if we write the code something like this. Let's say we have x is equals to 0, while x is less than 7, and then we just write print x. We forgot to write x is equals to x plus 1, and we wrote it here. X is equals to, or x plus, like this, x plus equals to 1, like this, outside the while loop. This particular loop will continuously run because x is never incremented within the while loop. It should be here, but we wrote outside the while loop. So this particular code will run continuously and it will not terminate any time. Or this block of code will keep on running. It keeps on printing values. And it will never reach this particular line of code. This particular line of code is never reached because we are trying to write a code where this line is never reached. Right? Just one removal of tab space, right? We have removed the tab. If it was here, this is fine. But if we do something like this is something that we didn't expect and the values keep on printing out. So this statement is kind of causing us that trouble because the tab space was eliminated or the indentation was removed. Hence, this wouldn't run. All right. So we have to take care of these kind of indentations very carefully. This is one way of checking this. And if you want to intentionally write something to run infinitely, right, we can write something like this, while true, and then some statements here, right? We want to write some statements, right? And then it keeps on running. But then there is nothing here, so that's okay. So we have to be, if this wanted to write something intentionally, then we can write it like this. But this is a case where, we might encounter because of some indentation was removed or something went wrong and the code keeps on running, for a longer period of time without even coming out of that block of code. So this is an infinite loop. This kind of looping is called as an infinite loops. If you want to kind of see the mistake, it is because of the indentation that is not provided. All right. So this is what happens. Okay, so let's try to do the same thing alternatively. Let's say we want to decrement the value, right? So let's say we have x is equals to 5 and we want to print that out. So while x is greater than 0 and we want to decrement the value. So I say print x and then we decrement it using minus equals to 1. So this is a decrement operator and then we can write it in this fashion. So some of these constructs have been taken directly from C programming language and they look similar, right? So now we get 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 as the output. Okay. So this is how we can run while loop. The same thing can be done using for loop in Python. Okay. Is this clear, guys? Before we move on to for loop, let's see if this is fine. Any questions on this? If there are no questions, all right, then we'll go to for loops. For loops in Python are interesting. The way we write for loops right now, we'll use what is called as a range object. All right, so with respect to a range object is nothing but what is called as an iterable. Something that can be iterated over. That is what is called as a range object. So if you want to use range object, we do something like this. Let me try to show what is a range object. So we write something like this for range in 1 to 10. So what it gives us is a range object, right? It gives us a range object like this as the output. Now, what does it do? It gives us a sequence of values starting from 1 and ending until 10. 10 is not included. And we can iterate over these numbers, right? So if we want from 0 and we have to end at 10, so we can write something like this, 0 to 10. Let's say we want alternate numbers from 0. So 0 to 10, and then we can provide 2 as the step value. So what does range take? So range takes a starting value, ending value, and a step value. How much it should be incremented. Let's say we want to decrement it. From 100, we want to do it. So range of 100 to 0, and then the decrement value is -1. This is also something that we can do. So range of 10 is from 0 to 10. Range of 0 to 10, 2 increments the value by 2. So we get an range object that has values 0, 2, 5, etc. 0, 2, 4, 6, 8, etc. And then if you want to start from some other number and edit some other number, we can provide the starting number and also the ending number. By default, the step value is 1. If you want to have another step value, we have to mention it as a third argument. All right, so this is how we can provide. So the first value is till what value we want to generate, and by default, it generates from 0. If you do not want to do this and we want to provide both the starting number and the ending number, we can do something like this. Range of 1, 10. This is the starting. 1 is the starting number. Ending number is 10. So 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9 will be printed out. Right? So majority of the times, instead of going for while loop, a for loop will be much more convenient because it takes care of this increment with respect to numeric values, right? Whenever we want to check for numeric values and we want to do it, then for loop will be good. But if you have a condition and then we want to iterate, probably while loop will be helpful. Depending on our choice, we can use them, and also depending on the problem. So how do we write this? So let's say I want to write this, okay? And also I mentioned range is something, it generates a sequence of numbers, and these kind of objects are called as iterables, something that can be iterated over. Range is basically an iterable object. I'm talking about object many times so far. So you can call that as something where we can iterate over, and object is similar to something as a value for now. But if there are multiple values and we want to store heterogeneous values also, we can refer them to as objects. Okay. But then what exactly is object with respect to a programming language? Probably if time permits, we'll see that later. But for now, I'm referring to range as an object, which generates an iterable, which is having a starting value, ending value as well. And by default, range's step value is 1. Okay, these are the points that we have to know with respect to range. So how do we use this in for loop? For is also a loop. It is a keyword that is used to iterate over. So what I'll try to do is I'll say for I in range of, let's say 8. Okay. And then we want to print out I. What is there in I? I write like this. For I in range of 8, print I. So it prints out values from starting from 0 and ending at 7. So this is how we will be able to use for loop. So for I in range. So it checks for if this particular I is there in this value, and I is printed out, and automatically it starts iterating over from the first value to the last value. It doesn't really need to we do not have to write any code where we increment the value of I. The for loop takes care of moving the value from one place to another place. All right. So that is how we'll be able to print this. Let us also test if we want to write some starting value and ending value. So I write something like this for I in range of 3 to 10. Okay. And I also increment the step value here by 2. And then I say print of I. So the step value is 2. So if it starts from 3, the next value will be 3 plus 2, which is 5. 5 plus 2 is 7. 7 plus 2 is 9. So 3, 5, 7, and 9. So the for loop ends at 10. After that, it won't print, right? Because that is what we have given here. So I try to write this like this. And the values that are printed out is 3, 5, 7, and 9. All right. So we can provide in this fashion as well. We can provide something like this. And next, we'll see only by giving two different values, the starting value and the ending value. Let's say I give the starting value as 5 and the ending value as 10. Okay. And then we want to print this out. Oops, this will not work. So I give this as capital I. It should be small I, lowercase I. So 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. So 10 is not inclusive. Only the starting number is inclusive. The ending number is not inclusive. I starts from 0. You're right. I starts from 0. Anytime. Okay, let us check that out also. For I in range of 3. Let's say I do range of 3. And then I print I here. Okay. You see here, when we do not provide the starting value, it is only considering as the end value. Range of 3 is only the end value. 0, 1, 2 will be printed out. So the starting value, if nothing is provided, it is 0 by default. Only one value is provided. It means it is the ending value. It is not the starting value. All right. Hope this answers your question. Yes, we'll go there. We'll go there. It works well with lists as well. We'll go to the next topic as well, which is essentially containers. This works very well with lists. Okay, we will come to that as well. That is our next topic. But before that, let's try to see if we want to write some condition with respect to what we are doing here. So what I want to do here is that, guys, any questions on this with what we have done before I move ahead? Is everything fine? Any questions on this? Okay, yes is for everything is fine, and no is for, I think, no questions on this. All right. Okay, so what we'll do now is we want to print even numbers. Let's say I want to print even numbers. So I say F for I in range of 10, and then I put a condition. If I percentile 2 equals to 0, then print I. So we want to get all the even numbers from 0 to 15, right? So we get something like this: 0, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, and 14. So what I did is we first wrote the for loop, and then within the for loop, after this semicolon, this comes to the block of for loop, and within that I have written this if condition, and within this if condition, right, I hit enter, the indentation comes within if block, and then we write print statement, right? So this is how we will be able to iterate over for loop with the condition. Let's say we want to make this range value dynamic. We want to make this dynamic. How will we do that? We will capture the input, right? Int of input, and then say enter the maximum value. Okay, what does this mean? Why are we putting maximum value? We want to find all the even numbers till that maximum value, right? Or enter value of n. That is also something that we can give. So enter the value of n, right? And then we can write this piece of code as it is. All that we have to do here is we just change the 15 to n, right? Everything else is the same. Nothing else changes. And then we can get the even numbers till that particular value. So instead of 15, I want to give 18, right? It gives the even numbers till 18. Instead of 18, I want to give it till 10, only 10. So it gives all the even numbers till 10. Okay, 10 is not included. So that is why we get the values in this fashion, right? So this is how we can capture the input as well with respect to the for loop. So guys, any questions still here? All right, if there are no questions, then what we'll do is next thing is we'll try to look at the data structures that are available in Python. Okay. There are different kinds of data structures in Python. We have list, we have tuple, we have sets, we have dictionaries, and there is something called as collections. So what is a list is what we'll start with, and then we'll go on to the other set of data structures. Okay. So what is a list? List is nothing but a comma separated container of values, and list can contain multiple values. Now, why are we trying to use a data structure? So far, we used variables in order to store the value. Let's say we want to store more than one value, right? Instead of just one value, we want to store multiple values. And those multiple values can either be integer or float, or that could be some other data structure, or it could be an object. It could be anything. And we want to store them in continuous blocks of memory together. In such cases, we go for these kind of data structures, right? And the basic data structure where we can have these kind of continuous blocks of value stored together is what is list. It is basically something that can store heterogeneous values. That is what is a list. And list can be accessed based on index. The values that are present or the elements that are present inside a list can be accessed using index. That is what is a list. Let's say we have something like this. We have the values 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. These are the 5 values that we want to store inside one variable. And how can we do that? We can use list as a container or a storage place where we can have all of these 5 values stored together. And how are they accessed? Now, the red one that you see above these green values, green ones are the original values. The red ones are essentially the index of each of those values, or they are the indices. So 0 represents 1, 1 is the index for value 2, 2 is the index for value 3, 3 is the index for value 4, 4 is the index for value 5. So each of these values have their indexes or indices or their own index when we store them in list. Similarly here, if we come from the right side, 5 will have an index value of -1, 4 will have an index value of -2, 3 will have an index value of -3, 2 will have an index value of -4, and 1 will have an index value of -5. So these numbers will have from the left side index starting from 0, and from the right side the index starting from -1. This is something that we have seen similar in our previous session, which is basically string, right? Same kind of indexing pattern is also for list as well. So how do we create a list? Let's say we want to create a list. Let's say I say names, okay? And then we can create an empty list like this. An empty list can be created in this way, or if you want to use the list word keyword, this is also a way to create an empty list. So when we run this, we get two different lists. So let's say I do print of list or print of list one, print of names one. So not list, print of names. Print of names and print of names one. What do we get? We get empty square brackets. We get empty square brackets, indicating that the values are not present and these two are empty lists. Okay, and how do we know the type of these two lists? So print type of names and print type of names one. So we get both of them are lists. So names is basically is pointing to a list object. Names one is also pointing to a list object, right? So let's try to create some list with some values. So let's say I have numbers as the variable name, and then I want to have some elements in this particular list. We can add them using comma separated. So I can have 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So now numbers, instead of having just one value, it is containing 5 values. All right, starting from 1 and ending at 5. right? Ending at 5. That is what we have. So how do we know it is numbers is having list of values or not? So let us print that out. So if we print numbers, we get list of 5 values. And how do we access the values that are present in it? We can use indexing. So how do we index? We specify the variable name, then use the square brackets, and then provide the index of it. Let's say I provide 0, then it will print the first value. Index of 0 is 1, which is nothing but the first value. Similarly, if I say numbers of 1, it will print the second value, which is 2. All right. Is this clear, folks? Any questions on this? All right. So if there are no questions, so how do we know if we want to get the last element? So when we want to get the last element in an index, we can specify -1. So numbers of -1, this will give us the last element, which is 5. Okay. This is how we will get the last element. Let's say we want to get all the elements. One way of doing it is typing something like this, numbers, right? And similarly, if you want all the elements, numbers of 0, colon. This is also something that we can get. Numbers 0, and we get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All right, so this way we will be able to get the values. Okay, guys, so any questions still here? All right. So we can also slice the indices. How do we slice the indices? Something like this, numbers, and we want the values from index 1, and we want it till index 4. So index 4 will not be included, but what is there till index 4 can be got. So we get 2, 3, and 4. The starting index and the ending index. Ending index is not included because actually 4 is 5, but that is not printed out. So 2, 3, and 4 are printed out. They're starting from 1 till 4. So instead of this, let's say I give something like this, numbers of 1, colon, end, and it prints out 2, 3, 4, and 5. Okay, this is how we get the values. So this is how we will be able to slice the indexes or slice the list using indexes. Okay, so let's say we want to get it from 2 to 5 or 2 until end. So it will give us 3, 4, and 5. So starting index is 2, the value is 3, and it ends at 5. Let's say we want to get using the negative indices. So I specify -4 and then the end till the end. So -4 till the end will give us 2, 3, 4, and 5. Right? The other way is also just to print in this way, which we have seen already. Or if we want to do something like this, we can also do something like this. Both of them print the same thing. All right. So this is how we can print all the elements in a list object. Fine. Let's say we want to find the length of the list. What is the length of the list? Right? So then we can say len as the function, and then we can pass list to it, which is nothing but numbers. Length of numbers will give us 5 as the output. Fine. So what we'll do is we'll stop here for today. Any questions what we have covered today or anything previously also, anything can be asked. If you have any questions, we may take them up now. All right. If there are no questions, then we will stop here for today. Thank you so much. See you on Monday. All right, then. Goodbye and good night.